Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world or at whatever time you're listening to this and watching this. Today, I finally got a quiet spot. No trucks, hopefully, for right now. So hopefully it'll be a little quieter and we can talk about day 2 of the listening fatigue and overcoming listening fatigue. So today I actually want to talk about silence. We're in a world that's full of noise, and when you're watching this, let me know, give me a like, comment, and let me know that you agree with me. We're in a world that is almost constantly noisy. We're in a world that we're constantly on the go. We're always doing things, and it's filled with noise. And actually, sound levels, volume levels have increased. They've done studies that show that the noise in restaurants, even the music in restaurants, is loud enough to cause hearing loss. And if we go in, for those of you that go to church, a lot of times the worship music is extremely loud. Even the hand dryers in most public restrooms are loud enough to cause hearing loss. And this all takes a toll on us. But we also need to concentrate as we listen. And that can be a struggle for a lot of us because we are in classes, we are in seminars, we are in meetings that last all day with very little to no breaks. And we're forced to concentrate and to try and listen for long periods of time. Sorry. And this can overwhelm us. This can take over, use up our mental resources, and it can get very overwhelming. And we're tempted a lot of times to kind of power through and not take breaks. You know, we want to look good in front of our employers, in front of the seminar leaders and our instructors. So we don't take breaks. And when there are breaks in the schedule, a lot of times we might stay and catch up with our friends, or maybe we're being watched to see how we interact with the other audience or participant members, or there's round robins during the break if we're working with our coworkers and we're at a meeting. And we're tempted that we need to power through, we need to keep going, and it doesn't matter if we're tired, if we're exhausted, we need to keep going. Well, the problem is that continues, that need for a break doesn't go away. It just continues to build up. It's like a lack of sleep. If you don't sleep well one night and you get rest the next night, then you're fine. You can make up that sleep debt. But say that you're working on an important project, or you have final exams if you're still in school, and you pull a bunch of all-nighters, and you get very little sleep. That sleep debt is going to continue to increase to the point where either you just can't stay awake and you start falling asleep outside of your control, or you start getting sick. And for me, it's a very old example, but my first mission trip that I ever went to, we had a training couple of weeks. I think it was like 2 weeks at this training camp, this mission trip. And we weren't given a lot of sleep. And we were camping, we were in Florida, it was hot, it was swampy, and we weren't getting a lot of sleep, and we were pulling in these full days. And I would end up falling asleep involuntarily during the meetings, and constantly like, trying to pay attention, that kind of thing, and keep myself awake, because my body was saying, I require sleep. I cannot keep going at the level that you are asking me to. And I started falling asleep beyond my control. The same way, a lot of us, when we try and power through, when we're experiencing listening fatigue, like I said, we lose focus. Our brains drift off. We start daydreaming, thinking of other things. We can't focus on the teacher, the seminar instructor, our boss in the meeting, or whatever the task is at hand, because we need that mental break. We have mental stimulation, overstimulation, with all the noise coming into our ears, especially if we're in an area where there's background noise, or if it's a group discussion and you got a lot of people talking at once, and you're trying to look at different people's lips and follow everybody, and you really can't because somebody's talking here and somebody's talking there and there, and you're trying to watch and see what's going on, and it's just very hard to follow. So don't be afraid to give yourself a break. In fact, it's vital. You have to give yourself that time of quiet. So if you're in a situation where you're in classes, or you're in a all-day seminar, or you're at a long meeting, take time, when you do get a break, take time and go to a place of silence. I don't care if that could be the bathroom. That's fine. That could be outside, in your car, instead of going with everybody to that noisy restaurant for lunch. Maybe you need to just go pick up something or bring your own lunch and eat in a quiet spot. But you need to give your brain a break. It's vital. A lot of people with hearing loss refer to deaf time. And basically what they mean by that is you're being barraged by noise all day. And especially for us who have hearing loss, it can be very hard to focus in, narrow in, and decipher what sounds are vital, what sounds are important to us, and what sounds can we ignore. If we have hearing aids, they tend to pick up all the sounds around us. They don't often pick up, just the sounds that we want to hear. And that can pose a problem to us because we're constantly trying to have to sift through the different noises to try and focus on what we need to hear. We're filling in blanks on what we didn't hear, trying to take this jumble of noise into intelligible sentences, and it takes a toll on us. So a lot of people, when they go home, they turn off the hearing aids and take them off. They switch off the cochlear implants if they're wearing one, and they give themselves a break. And that's really vital. It's so important. Don't try and power through when you're already being overwhelmed by noise. Even if you're in a situation where you feel like you're not getting a break, maybe sometimes you just have to get out, and go to the bathroom or something, just to give yourself a bit of a break and allow your brain to rest. Otherwise, your brain is going to reap the effects of that, and you're not going to be able to focus as well. You can always ask someone about the information that you missed. So that's really important. Know when to give yourself a break. The other thing is, at least for those of us who are in America, and other countries have different forms of these laws, so make sure you ask and look into the laws in your country to see what provisions are provided for you. But we have, as Americans, we have the Americans with Disabilities Act, and what that does, it requires that we are provided with accommodations. Those of us who have some form of a disability, and I know there's a lot of back and forth within the deaf and hard of hearing community as to whether hearing loss should be considered a disability. A lot of people might think it's a bit insensitive, but for our government, for the purposes of legal rights and standings, we do have a disability, and it needs to be provided for within our schools, our workforce, and then certain meeting areas or governmental institutions. So we need to know when can we take advantage of that. So this can come in different forms, and sometimes it depends on the level of your hearing loss. If you are deaf, or if you sign, a sign language interpreter should be provided for you if you ask for one. And that includes schools, that includes the workforce, that includes different healthcare facilities and governmental services. If you don't need a sign language interpreter, then you need to be given some other form of accommodation. Now, this can be CART. A lot of people use CART, which is captioning in real time, where they bring in someone to actually take your notes for you, and then the captions appear on your computer screen or on a bigger screen so that you can follow along with what someone is saying. You can get personal listening devices. I talked yesterday about the Aldi with the loop here and the box. But the great thing is now for kids, that same bulky contraction, that personal listening device, has now shrunk to about that size, and it acts as an attachment to their hearing aid. So it's not really that noticeable anymore. And you can also get a smaller personal listening device that will kind of broadcast sound and into areas of the room where the acoustics may not be as good, or maybe you're in the back of the room, and it will help. That usually comes from intercom in the top, but they have a little table set up, and then it will broadcast the noise. But that will, and then you have also what's called a Roger pen, which is like a handheld. It does actually look like a pen. It's like a handheld personal listening device, and you kind of direct it at the person who is speaking. It will help pick up that sound and transmit it wirelessly through your hearing aids. Certain areas are looped, like if you go into a train station or maybe even an airport or a church, they have a looping system, so you can wear a loop or have the attachment into your hearing aids, and it will transmit sound from whoever's speaking into the microphone, and it will transmit the sound into your hearing aids. So, make sure that you are familiar with the accommodations, and because that will also help just relieve the listening fatigue, alleviate it a bit, because it'll help direct the sounds. Instead of sound coming from all different areas and directions, you get a focused sound that is transmitted directly into the hearing aids that you're wearing. And sometimes you don't even need hearing aids with certain things. I'm not technical, so I'm not sure how exactly sure how it works. I think there are some technical people in here. So if you want to give more of an explanation, if you're familiar with that, on how that works, feel free to. But yes, you do have different levels of, technology has improved a lot. You have different forms of technology that can really help you with hearing loss and making sure that you get the directed sound. But really don't try and power through it. The other thing that you can do is, if you have control over the meeting area, if you are the person hosting it, or if you have an input, look for an area that's quiet, look for an area that has good acoustics. Certainly if you're hosting a seminar, or if you're maybe the instructor in a classroom, make sure that you look for for rooms that have good acoustic. It's hard because a lot of places have open air plans now, especially in schools. They've turned to open air plans, which can make things noisier when you have classrooms right next to you and there's no walls in between. But look for an area that's quiet, look for an area that has good acoustics so you're not struggling with sound distortion. If you don't have a good area, you can help, that's very quiet, you can help diminish background noise, maybe putting like a screen or heavy drapes behind you or around you to muffle outside noise. Looking for an area that has a carpet or rugs to kind of dampen the noise of people moving and screeching their chairs. I haven't found anything that will get rid of chalk screeching on a blackboard, which is that's my least favorite sound. But I haven't found anything for that. But definitely, yeah, putting up drapes or screens, putting down rugs, anything to kind of dampen the noise, both inside the classroom and outside of it, can be beneficial. So now, today's your homework. I want you to take some time throughout the day and be conscious and notice when are you starting to experience listening fatigue. And notice that. Notice the amount of time that it takes and what happens if you try and power through. And then if you can, take some time away and go into a quiet spot and see how long it takes for you to recover. And then post your experience in the group and let me know. You know, did it take a long time for you to recover and feel like your brain was ready to go again and feel refreshed? Or were you tempted to kind of power through and keep going even though you knew that you were tired? So let me know about that, and then we will continue tomorrow. So I'll see you later. Bye.